and said, hey guys, like who would you want to hear from for a dressage judge about freestyle? And you got mentioned a lot. So that's why I messaged you.
Oh,
So I think it's great. And if anybody's watching, I see we have 4 viewers. So if someone could post a comment just to make sure that you can hear us and see us and that everything is working, that would be great. So whoever is watching, if you guys can just pop in the comments. And also what you can do is if you have any specific questions for Charlotte about judging musical freestyle, creating a freestyle for, from the judge's perspective, go ahead and pop it in the comments and we will address them as we're chatting. Okay, good. Teresa says hi. Teresa's great. So I have a lot of ladies that are okay. Janet's right. They're like the diehard, they're very good at watching regularly. So this will be fun. This is cool. And this is a little different than what we've done before, because usually I have freestyle designers or people who are working on freestyle. So you're our first dressage judge to get a perspective on. So if you want to give us just a little introduction about you and your background with judging, how long you've been judging, that would be great.
okay. I'm a very proud L graduate from one of the first 2 or 3 L programs that were held back in 91, 92.
Mhm.
And since 93, I've held, well, then it was AHSA, now it's USEF cards. I've been an S since 2003
Mhm.
and have really enjoyed the travel. It's absolutely been great. When I was competing, I competed through Grand Prix. I did freestyles through the national levels, uh, and really enjoyed composing them, making them. There's so much more intricate now, and the artwork that goes into it with the video, the audio work is just amazing. You
Yeah.
know, it used to be, I'm from the era where we kind of clicked on and off with our cassette tapes,
Yeah. Yeah.
to make it work.
Mhm.
So it's amazing to me to see all the advancements that's been made. I had a chance to judge freestyles at Region 2, at Region 7 this year,
Mhm.
and have done quite a few along the way. Uh, I like to panel judge. I like to be on the side. I realize that most people don't get to do that until you get to a regionals, and then you get creamed by the person on the side because there were things that you were hiding from the judges and no longer are hiding them.
That's
Uh,
true. Right.
that is true. Uh,
Yeah.
but everybody should enjoy them. I know people love to write to music, people love to hear music. It's important that you pick something that you like because you're going to have to practice it a lot.
Right. Right.
You'll be
Yeah.
hearing it over and over and over. You'll dream about your music, actually.
Right. And that your horse likes it too.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I actually did a group work for one of the GMOs down in Jacksonville, Florida this summer, and they just wanted to have a day. They brought in all their junior riders. The juniors were interested in freestyles. They were half Western and half English, and they all brought their own MP3s. I learned that.
Mhm.
I can't use one, but I can.
Yeah.
And we started off by first rider came in, wrote to 2 or 3 things. We thought it was really nice. And then we gave a second rider. She came in, she had 2 or 3 pieces. Some worked well, some did not. And then somebody said, hey, what if she rode to the first piece that the other first rider had? So we started mixing and matching all of the music. And it
Yeah.
was so much fun to see what worked, what people liked, and also what the horses liked, because they kind of have their definite feelings for it, I think. I
Yeah.
had a mare that absolutely hated strings, any violin, and it was not a good freestyle.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so much fun to see like all the different how all the music kind of like trends have changed over the years a little bit too. And it is fun those clinics where you can do the music comparisons because you're flipping through the music and you get something and it's like you get goosebumps when it's just right, with the horse and the combo. Those are a lot of fun to do. I wish they had more of those. It would be fun.
It was just a day of riding to music. There was only one freestyle that we composed sort of off the hip there. And it was for a girl who wanted to do a training level freestyle and wanted to know what extra things she could do.
Yeah.
Um, Placing your 20-meter circle in a different part of the ring, like
Uh-huh.
between R and S instead of, at
Mhm.
A or C or in the middle. And making short diagonals for things that are a little bit different like that.
Yeah.
And she had some really good music, so we had a good chance to flesh it out a little bit and give her something to go home with. But that was the only one that we actually put movements together with.
Yeah, it is hard to do it all in the same day. You really have to like just focus on the music or just focus on the choreography. Like it's such a process. Now we had one person just ask about, you mentioned your horse did not like the strings. She said, what about the guitar? Was it mostly violin or is it like anything in particular? What did you end up riding that horse to in particular?
You're gonna love this. She was a little gray mare, and we did Celtic music, and
Nice.
she liked the drums. She really got
Yeah.
into drums. It's the only horse I've ever had that really had that odd. That was the only thing that seemed to work for her.
Nice. Well, that's
I always
good.
liked Broadway,
Yeah,
but
that's
she
great.
did not.
Yeah. So do you find that that you a lot of people are always asking like, what music should we try that the judges will like the best, and I was like the best thing is what you love and what matches you and your course, but are there certain themes or trends or like any like little tips of like avoid these a little bit or do better with this and just like little things that kind of irritate you and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish people just wouldn't do that anymore.
Well, there is a box in the national levels that we fill out uh, under artistic for suitability
Mhm.
and cohesiveness. Um, I tried, that's the one box that if I'm going to just turn a deaf ear to it, I'm going to say, I'm going to like, okay, I'm going to like whatever you chose.
Mhm.
But I think I'm about the only judge that does that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, most of them, most of the people I talk to get a little bit edgy if there's a lot of heavy metal, um, screaming lyrics, a lot of the stuff that the kids today really like to ride to.
Mhm.
And you think, okay, honey, go ahead and do that. And then the poor judge is going, oh my God, you know, like that. And it's like,
Yeah.
um, and you want to be careful if you do use lyrics and you do use some of the modern things, uh, that the lyrics are clean, because some of them aren't.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
so we've seen that. So you want to find something that people recognize,
Hmm.
or at least have heard maybe before, even if they don't know what movie it came from.
Hmm.
Um, you would like also to pick a genre.
Hmm.
The genre could be the type of music, guitar, piano, or it could be the theme of the music, the
Right.
South,
Mhm.
California, things like that. It could be Broadway tunes. It could be a lot of things, but it'd be nice if we could sort of put it together and say, oh yeah, I understand. This is
Right.
what this is
Yeah.
what they're trying to put together.
Right.
Um, I remember seeing one about rain and
Like
um,
rain.
raining.
Oh.
Yes, like singing in the rain. They came in singing
Oh,
in the rain.
okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's cute. That's
Yeah.
cute.
And then they did. I can't remember what the walk was, but when they got into their finale,
Mhm.
it's raining men,
Oh, right. Yeah.
and it was wonderful.
Yeah, that's cute.
The I did not judge it, but Lila Ford did. And when she came in, she was absolutely bouncing up and down. She was like, I just love it. I loved it. And I
That's
think almost anybody would,
mhm.
and it was definitely a theme that you went to.
Right. Right.
So, So you
Yeah,
want to pick a theme, you want to find some way to make it cohesive. Um, and basically, if you find something that people recognize, that sometimes works better.
yeah, because you're always like, "Ooh, I wonder what that is," and it like piques your interest. Like,
Mhm.
it makes it a lot more fun to watch. Now we
Right.
had one person who she's actually in my freestyle course, and she is doing a yoga themed freestyle, which is really cool because she's a yoga instructor herself, and the music is really beautiful. But and so she's asking one of her songs. There's like not that many lyrics, but when it goes into the extended trot, it's kind of like oh my God, like kind of like an exclamation. But she's like, do you think that oh my God is bad to say? Like it's not swearing, but
No, I don't think it's bad to say, but just be sure that you have a really dynamic horse that has a good extension,
yeah.
because if it doesn't, the judge will be saying, "Oh my God," like
Yeah,
that. It's
right. Good
like,
point.
you
Good point.
you have to be sure that the horse is going to rise up to that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, and I there was so many at the Olympics. There were so many like a lot of lyrics and it was all just kind of like, dance music and pop music and it's interesting because that probably like even 5 years ago was not really kind of as popular or seen that much. But I think maybe because like people are getting a little more clever with the editing because it is really hard to edit with lyrics to be able to make it smooth and not like jump around a lot. So that's probably, more why people are adding them in or that the judges aren't upset about it, I guess.
We
Sylvia.
are told that
Mhm.
lyrics are allowed. So,
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
when they tell me this is what you judge and this is how you judge, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Um, as long as the lyrics suit the horse, that's fine. As
Mhm.
long as they suit the situation.
Right.
Um, like I say, just screaming and shouting,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Right, for sure. And what do you think about have you had any issues with sound levels recently? Because I know that when I was talking to some people who did the regionals down at the World Equestrian Center, it was so loud. And they said that like, most of the time you kind of worry your music's not loud enough for the judge to hear, but some of these places, the sound systems are actually really good. And then it almost got too loud. So have you seen that happen now that there's better sound systems?
Well, actually, I came over and watched the Grand Prix freestyles of last night at
Mhm.
Region 3. I think they got the bugs figured out.
Good.
They really did, because it was really nice. I didn't feel like anything was overpowering from a spectator's point. Um, and I was absolutely thrilled that we had a couple thousand people in the stands,
Awesome.
which I've not seen in Ocala ever before,
Yeah.
for dressage.
Yeah.
Um, and so that worked out very well. If you go to your, tryout there and the test, you shouldn't go for the loudest. Absolutely, because especially, and you should walk all over around the ring when
Hmm.
they're doing the try, so that, and go up over to see how loud it's going to be at the judge. If the judge is having a hard time getting the scribe to hear what she's saying,
Yeah.
then it's very difficult. It's very stressful, actually.
Yeah.
So, we try not to make it as loud as possible, but that's what the competitor does when they walk out there. It's, oh no, up, up, up,
Yeah.
it doesn't always work that well. So, and hopefully we're getting better and better acoustics and
Yeah.
speakers.
Hmm.
Every time I go someplace new, man, they get really good things in. Um,
Yeah. It definitely makes it sound a lot better. That's for sure.
which brings me to a point I wanted to make
Hmm.
for people when you do get to the big world and you have the announcer, you've given him your whatever it is you give them now. Um, a lot of these guys store the memory.
Hmm.
And if you're in an area like, say, Wellington, where you show your freestyle time after time after time, they just look at the schedule and say, oh, Mary Lou's coming here. Oh, here's hers. Plug it in. there is a problem sometimes. If you change your music,
Right, like
be
update it.
sure to bring that to the attention of whoever you're giving the music to, and even drop by the announcer's booth and make a mention to that, because so-and-so could look at it, so there's Mary Lou, click her in, but she's changed her music a little bit. That
Yeah,
actually did happen in West Palm a year ago.
that's great tip because I've actually not heard that before. So that's really
Yeah.
great
So
to
like I
keep.
say, if you do any changes and you've been to that showgrounds before, the same announcer, some of them have you stored already. Be sure that
Right.
they don't reuse the one before.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, so we have a couple questions we can catch up on. Kathy asks, for the lower levels, is it better to repeat some clips that match the walk, trot, canter elements so there is a familiarity and flow to the performance? What do you think, like about symmetry with the music, or does it really matter to you?
You know, you don't want it to be test-like. You want something to be a little bit different in it. But if you do it in mirror image and you're with your horse's music and the horse is moving well, the music suits it, by the time I'm halfway through the performance, I think I really like this.
Mhm.
And, degree of difficulty for lower levels is very small. You
Yeah.
don't have to, be really flashy. So by the time they turn around, they start doing it again, I'm waiting to see that next side to
Hmm.
see if they're as good on the other side as they are. And you make it simple, you let it flow. The lower levels should not be very busy. That's
Hmm.
for sure. If you can find one or two, maybe things to do a little bit differently, short diagonals or working on the quarter lines or the center lines, placing your circles in a different place, that's nice. And
Hmm.
that gives you a degree of difficulty.
Right.
But, you know, I we like to kind of the best ones that I score are the ones that I know what they're going to do before they do it.
Right.
Once
You
they
get
get
that
halfway
flow.
through, oh yeah, okay, I get this, and she's doing it well, so higher scores.
Yeah, it's almost that little bit predictability. It can help you relax and enjoy the performance a little bit as well. Yeah,
Exactly.
instead of like having a separate song for every single movement, it'd be like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
Tori asks, what do you like to see in the lowest levels, like training or basic level Western dressage, that makes them enjoyable to watch and judge, even though there's not a ton of diversity in the allowed movements? I kind of already just talked about that, but anything
Yeah.
else? Yeah.
Okay. What I really like to see in any level, and definitely more so in the training level and first level, is that you ride to your music. You don't ride to a pattern.
Hmm.
Because very often, I mean, the last time I watched a freestyle, girls working around, and she got to A and she walked. And when she got to the corner, the music changed.
Hmm.
So ride to your music. This is a freestyle. You don't have to do everything at a letter.
Right.
You just let it flow, let it go, ride to your music. Um, if you feel like you're ahead of your music, then make a shorter diagonal. If you're setting up to do a diagonal and you come through a corner and you realize, oh, oof, I'm behind my music, make it shorter.
Hmm.
If you're ahead of your music, make it longer.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so it just sort of boxes in. You have that ability to do that. Nobody's going to say, oh, she didn't go to R, she didn't go to S this time.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah. In each direction. It doesn't have to be exactly the same letter to
right.
letter. Right.
But
Yeah.
if you make all your marks, if you make at least, Terry Gallo says 6 marks,
Mhm.
if you stop with the music when you're coming in your entry, and you start with the music, if you make your first change of gait with and or what you're going to do, your first movement, uh, with some a slight change in the movement, and then you show the changes when you go to canter, your music should change to canter. walk, walk, you make those like at least 6 points, it should be a very good score.
Hmm.
Uh,
Right. Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. It should not be a 9, but it should at
Right.
least be a 7, right?
Right. You've gotten the fairly sufficient mark, fairly good mark, actually.
Right. And if you really have a sense of music, I've seen people ride that I really felt were dancing with their horses, dancing with the music, felt it, made all the changes when they should. That is when you give a much higher score.
Right, right. Yeah, that's awesome. So Sylvia asks, would an extended counter canter score higher in level of degree of difficulty at third level than true extended canter? I think she's saying maybe coming out from counter canter into the extension, which I've seen I think that's a very pretty move. I've used that at second level a lot before. But what do you think about do you see that a lot? Do you like that? Like coming out counter canter and then taking the extended canter across the diagonal? Or doing a regular extension with a flying change. You'd have to have your flying change if you did it from the
Oh,
correct.
third level, yeah.
Mhm.
You could do it either way. I think I would definitely, if you're on a diagonal, it doesn't matter what lead you're on.
Mhm. Right.
It's like you're going on a straight line, you're counter cantering. Well, so, okay, if you're doing a count, you really can't do a counter canter on a diagonal. You can do it through the corners, through the
Right.
short side,
That's
on
what
the
I think.
long side,
Yeah.
you
On the
know.
short side and then come out
Yeah,
into true lead by the time you get to the next corner.
correct. I think
Yeah.
that's a fluent way of doing it, actually. And it's a nice way of setting your horse up to actually expand a little bit and get a little more in his stride for an extension.
Yeah. I think one of my questions that might if you can think of any little like the allowed and not allowed movements, like there's a lot of little things that people get confused on. And what do you see when you're judging? Do you see any trends of like, ooh, riders really aren't understanding that this means this or that means that, like at the levels, like if there's anything that kind of stands out to you a little bit that people can avoid?
The biggest mistake I see people make, and it's regular or freestyles, is not being able to do a correct haunches in, which
Hmm.
depending upon where you're going could be a rombear. But, eh,
You mean
eh,
not just in
yeah,
general to freestyle, just in general doing a good
yeah.
hunt?
And
Hmm.
it's very difficult. Second level is probably going to be the most difficult level for anybody to do a freestyle because they're fighting to get on that level.
Hmm.
And, they're looking forward to being a third level horse. So
Right,
they're
right.
spending not as much time as they should to
Hmm.
really ingrain and get those lateral movements that they need done. And so many times you sit there and you watch it and you think, oh, she hasn't done a hunches in left yet. I wonder if that's supposed to be it. It really looks like a
Right,
shoulder in right, but you know, it's like
right. Because
basics are a real big thing here.
right. And that's where like sometimes when you put them on a different line, it can confuse the judge because you're like, well, are they doing shoulder in or let that way? Or are they trying to do haunches in this way? Like, so I suppose if you don't have very good lateral movement, make it very clear on the rail, something that's like no doubt what you're doing, even if you don't have
Well,
a good haunches in, I suppose.
do it on a straight line,
Mhm.
either on the center line, the quarter line, or the long side. Uh, where you get into trouble, and that's a classic, trying to do a shoulder in on a diagonal.
Mhm.
Uh, in second level, we look up and say, oh, look, that's a nice half pass. Oops.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a classic mistake that I don't see people try that much anymore.
Yeah.
I do think people should use a little bit more short diagonals.
Hmm.
That sometimes helps a lot. Um, I wish people would not hide their walks.
Hmm. So
Almost everybody walks down the long side beyond E or B, and
I know.
it's hard to give a good score for that.
Right,
Um,
right.
but give us a chance to look at your walk and really work on getting your horse to open up with the walk a little bit.
Hmm.
I know everybody's nervous when they when they show in front of us anyway, but, and especially when there's music involved because you have to make the pattern up that you're doing.
Mhm.
Um, but give us a chance to see the walks. People hide them way too much, and there aren't that many bad walks out there.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what are some of your favorite moves that you see, like anything kind of unique and interesting that you're like, oh, I love it when the riders do, this movement or flying changes on the circle or, have, or even like the lower level, because we have a lot of lower level riders, like the stretchy trot is because sometimes you can smooth that into like another circle, but then making sure it's clear enough. Like there's definitely like
Mhm.
little clever things that sometimes we try to do clever things and maybe doesn't come out that great. But like, what have you found that any like things that pop in your head that you're like, ooh, I really liked how this went?
Sometimes if there's a surprise,
Hmm.
like you get to the end of the diagonal and not making like a half turn or a pirouette or anything like that, but just a nice, and you come back up the same way instead of going around the short side. Finding something down there, like going across the diagonal and like in first level, doing a 10-meter circle in the corner and then coming back out, like that.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's something that surprises you. It's not test-like, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
um, and and it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, putting in the non-test like elements for sure. I have a couple more questions.
yeah.
Everyone's loving this because they get to get the insider scoop here. So you say if you repeat a required movement more than once in a freestyle, is it only the first time it is done that is judged? I suppose like if you did
Oh
multiple.
no, every single time, you
Yeah.
know. So,
Mhm.
and that's why, like in third level, uh, people tend to put in a Hail Mary line. So if they've
Yeah.
screwed up one of their flying changes and they know it, they'll try to do that change again. If they the second time they get like a 7, and the first time they had a 4 because it was late behind,
Mhm.
then you average it, they get a better score. So yeah, you do want to if you do now if you do something twice and the second one is bad, so that doesn't really help. But it's up to you.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, for sure. And that makes me think about how they changed the rule from like when you used to be able to do like a medium trot on a curved line, and now it only counts towards the artistic mark. So making sure that you ride it on a straight line to get your score. And then when you
Correct.
see, yeah, and if you see a medium trot on a curved line, you're just like, oh, okay, I'm thinking about that for the artistic marks.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not putting
Choreography.
Right. You're not putting an extra mark in the extended trot. So that's where maybe some riders might be like, well, I thought I did two, but there's not a second score. But that would be the only instance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Janet says, I have a fear of forgetting what's next, despite lots of practice. It's a nerves thing. Any tips for recovering gracefully if you have lost your train of thought? At what point should someone request to leave, like worst case scenario that you're really lost?
Actually, I did hear of someone, we were talking about freestyles over dinner one night, and somebody said that, yeah, the girl just stopped in the middle of it, looked at her and said, I forgot everything. And, and of course, the judge said, well, it's a freestyle. It's like, um, and I think she did leave, and you're allowed to do that. Anytime you feel that you need to throw in the towel, you can stop and throw in the towel.
I
And I'm sorry, the dog's barking behind. Chris.
The cats are having fun.
It's actually the cat is 16 pounds and the dog is 8.
Oh, okay. I see it is. It's a cat, a
The
dog
puppy
and a
is
cat.
making the noise, but they are had them a week, have had the puppy a week, and they are making their own music. At
Wow.
any rate, sorry about that.
That's fine.
Uh,
Um, oh, and
and
then yeah, what if like somebody stops, like say she
yeah,
stops because she's nervous and you stop the meet like they might stop the music, but you can't restart right then, because the hard part would be, like you get an error of test. You can't necessarily get an error of test and then have, because the music's going to be off. So
No,
that's just keep riding.
you have to keep writing. Now, but that does bring up one thing that came out of the last judges forum I went to.
Mhm.
And the thing is, if you are writing and you go along and all of a sudden you realize that the music has skipped, something's happened, or
Mhm.
it's breaking up,
Yeah.
don't finish the test.
Uh-huh.
Don't finish it and salute and leave. Once you salute at the end of the test, that's it.
Mhm.
Okay. However, if you feel like there's something wrong with the music, it's breaking or whatever, stop and go to the judge. Don't salute. First
Mhm.
thing the judge should say to you is that your music?
Yeah.
Yeah. And occasionally they say no, you know.
Right. Like it's the
Uh,
wrong music. Yeah.
right. And then, if they say yes, I said, well, what's wrong? And oh, it's breaking up, it's not on the right track or something, then they get to leave. You work it out with the audio people. Usually the manager will reschedule the test either on a break or before or after lunch or something so that they can do that. Once they come in and they start doing their test again, um, you can actually judge it from the beginning because
Mhm.
you just don't know what you had missed or whatever. Uh,
Right.
but uh, but you should never, if it's the wrong music, don't finish, salute, and leave and complain because there's nothing we can do after that.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. That's very good to know. Okay. And then Teresa asks, how do you feel about leg yield away from the judge? Does that bother you at all? I know sometimes it's
No,
impossible to not have it, but
I like leg heels that are straight.
yeah.
All right. Uh, Not a problem. However you want, however it works with your choreography is fine by me.
Mhm.
Most of the time, you see a little bit better crossing and balance coming towards the judge.
Mhm.
But if it works with your choreography, fine.
Yeah. Especially when you can't hide if you have a side judge later.
No. Well, actually, the side judge really doesn't
Doesn't matter.
judge if it's literally going sideways, front
Mhm.
C. Uh, Really, the judge that gives the score for the leg yield is at C. The judge sitting over on the side can actually look at things like, is the horse's head quiet? Is the horse's mouth closed? Is the rider balanced up there? Are they having difficulty? But you can't say, well, they don't have enough sideways motion because
Right.
you from the side you don't see that.
Right. For
It's
sure.
kind of
Yeah.
like shoulder ins and haunches in from the side. Um, Most of the time, especially if they're on the other side of the ring,
Mhm.
we're looking at their cadence,
Mhm.
their rhythm, their connection, but we can't say from the side you don't have enough bend.
Right. Yeah. You might have a feeling, but you're not technically allowed to say anything. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, now Lara Ann says, how important is it that you match the horse's gait to the tempo of the music? I see some people with beats that match the gait very well, while some are more abstract and just go with the flow of the music.
Background music, actually, that probably bothers me more than anything else
Hmm.
because it's like it's very lovely and it flows, but it doesn't really enhance the horse's gaits.
Hmm.
And you kind of want to try to get close. The big exception to that would be in the walk. You want to find music that says walk, relax, not necessarily go with the footfalls because it's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
Uh, so, we kind of let gloss over that. If the music says this should be a walk and the horse shows a nice walk, no problem. Canter, And trot, we'd really like to see a little bit more attention to rhythm,
Yeah.
you know,
No,
and the
that's
cadence.
a good insight because, we're always trying to match the footfalls, but sometimes you'll have music because I'll like create freestyles and you have music that you search for that's supposed to match. It's the right BPM for the walk, but you're like, this does not sound like walk, or this sounds, you know, it might have the right match the beat of the walk, but it just sounds it's too strong. It's not relaxing. It's not calm, and then you'll hear other music and you're like, well, that doesn't have the right BPM, but it's really pretty and it sounds like the walk. So I suppose like that, if you're gonna fudge on a little bit on the beats or whatever, like
Hmm,
that would be good,
yeah,
like to do it there for more artistic and relaxation.
yeah. I mean, it should be that moment of like little commercial, if you will, in between. You know? Um, and it always works better with a horse with better gaits, that's for sure. And it's not that I give a bad score for somebody if it wasn't quite on the mark for both the canter and the trot, but you're going to give a better score
Mhm.
to the person who actually, the princess who kisses all those frogs and finds the music that really does work, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. Now, what do you think about entrances? Like, what are your some good tips you have for enter or we had a freestyle designer on recently and she was saying like that her pet peeve was always that people would come in and halt and then just circle back. And she said that usually that annoys the judge that you're kind of wasting that space instead of using the center line to get right into your movement. So just kind of like little things like that, or um, if you, yeah, just little things about entrances.
Okay. Um, Actually, the one thing that I think is cheating in a way is the person who walks in and halts. You know, I don't care where you stop. I wish you would trot or canter
Okay.
if that's
Yeah.
the case, maybe. Um, it's like I don't give it as high a score as I do for a nice
Hmm.
halt when a horse comes straight down the center line.
Hmm.
If they want to present their horse in the first movement coming towards the judge, then they have to stop at D or
Right.
L.
Mhm.
And when they pick up again, they have to turn back around and then present their horse. If they want to go into, like, say, a leg yield, or if they want to come, you know, up the quarter line and your shoulder ends, whatever. Um, and they want to show it to the judge right off. That's the best thing they do.
Mhm.
If they halt down close to the end, that's fine.
Right.
If you
Right.
come all the way to X and then you go around there and go, I'm thinking, oh, when is this going to happen? You know,
Right, right. Yeah, that little
you know,
bit of, unless it's like really setting up for cool extended trot that on the music and it builds or something. But
yeah, you know.
yeah.
I can see that. What bothers me a little bit about people's choreography is they tend to throw in extra circles
Mhm.
all over the place. If the circle is, if it's not in your template for what you need to be doing for this, level, try to find some way to either cut off some of them or find a different way to deal with. Again, short diagonals are kind of a little bit different.
Mhm.
Short
Yeah,
diagonals actually can hide a lot,
right.
especially when you have a side judge.
Yeah.
If you do it, yeah, really, anything going or coming from B or E on
Mhm.
a diagonal, um, it puts the side judge sort of at a little disadvantage.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Funny.
noticed that people use them a lot, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think like definitely like if you use your quarter lines and if you have that adjustability, you wouldn't need to add a circle if you get ahead or behind because you can just ride on the rail or ride on the center line, adjust certain movements and the diagonals, make it longer, make it shorter,
mhm,
and use like
yeah.
a 10-meter circle just as a last resort if you absolutely had something bad happen, like a spook or something.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely not planned for lots of circles.
No. no, not a good thing. We get bored. The
Yeah.
other thing is I've seen a lot of people in the lower levels all make little half circles and turns, almost like they're trying to do like a serpentine from long side to long side. It's confusing.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of judges have mentioned that to me too, that we're kind of, what are they setting up for? They're setting up for another half circle. Now what? Um, it gets to be just a little too complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like a
and
little wasted space, like that just is confusing.
I can understand that they're trying to do something, but half the time I really can't understand what it is they're trying to do.
Mhm.
You
So
know,
you were talking about like a little S, like to change
S
the
curves,
kind of
S
thing.
curve, add a circle, whatever. And
Yeah.
I, and you wonder, well, gee, is she lost? No.
Right, right,
I do know that writers do get lost sometimes,
right,
and
right.
and writers forget to do things sometimes, and that always stresses out the judge because you sit there and you wonder, gee, did they do it and we didn't see it? Uh,
Right.
that's why occasionally you will see the CDIs. They have little computer things that they can talk to each other with. But at a regular show, you'll see if there's a panel judging, you'll see two judges get out and run over and go, "Did you see? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no, I didn't."
Well,
You
then,
know,
yeah, and that's better than just trying to guess for sure. Kathy asks, can you share your most memorable first impressions of a freestyle performance? Like, what was your, like, we all have our first freestyle that we are like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And that's why I want to ride dressage type thing. Do you have any of those like that really stick out in your memory?
yes, and everybody's seen it. It's on video when they had the World Equestrian Games in Aachen,
Mhm.
Blue Horse Matinee.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That's very
I
cool.
mean, everybody was going, and even my husband said, "Wow, that really is something, isn't it?" Yeah,
Yeah.
and also, and I probably hadn't felt anywhere close to that until the last WEG in Denmark and Charlotte Fry on Claverdale.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
That
Yeah.
is an amazing horse, and she did an amazing freestyle with
Wasn't
him.
hers to Queen? Is she the one that was
I
Queen?
think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it just matches like perfectly. That's
You
awesome.
don't need music when you see that,
Mhm.
the volume in his extensions.
Yeah. And then just to add the right music just makes it that much
Yeah,
better.
it worked beautifully.
Mhm.
So those are
Diane.
the two things I think of.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Everyone always has like those special freestyles that they, you know, it's so inspiring. Diana asked, my last freestyle choreography had first direction trot, then all canter work, and then finished with the second direction at the trot. The judge commented that all the trot work and canter work should be together. Do you have any preferences about this?
No, it's a freestyle. You can make up whatever you want. It's
I
like,
know I
huh?
would say that that actually makes it better choreography not to have it
Yeah.
all together.
I had a horse that was very nervous and he'd get really hot when he cantered, and I wanted to do a freestyle with him. And so I picked a very soothing canter, actually, I think it was yesterday,
Mhm.
one of the Boston Pops
Oh,
renditions of
yeah.
yesterday.
Mhm.
Yeah, and very soothing. I came in, we floated around. I think it was the third level, and then we did our walk, and then I realized now I could do my trot, throw
Mhm.
that in at the end where he was much more up and controllable.
Mhm.
So that was to Oobla Dee Oobla Da, Life Goes On,
Mhm.
the Beatles song,
Mhm.
and that just woke everybody up. It was
Yeah.
kind of neat. And it was a very successful freestyle because I just knew that the horse was going to lose it if I had upbeat music for the canter. And also he had a tendency of just finishing out a test, on the buckle really hard.
Yeah.
So get the canter out of the way, sleep through it, he had a good walk. and then finish with something that wakes everybody up. And you go,
Yeah.
wow, okay,
Yeah.
I like that song. I
Right.
still hear that song today. They use it an awful lot in freestyles, and every time they do, I usually have an extra point in there for them.
All right, everybody, write it down. And then, oh, and Diana says, by the way, you scored the particular freestyle very well, the one she's talking about. So it's just she had that one judge that made that comment, which, it is tricky because that sometimes a judge will see things much differently or have a different reaction. And that's why you just gotta ride on a bunch of shows and get a bunch of feedback before you change things too much, is what I usually tell people, is don't just change everything based on one judge's comments after one show.
Well, also go to the USDF website and take a look at the guidelines that they have for freestyles. There's a lot of information in there. Um, and stand by your ground. I mean, if you know you're doing it right,
Mhm.
um, you should definitely just keep on doing it. If you hear the same thing from several judges, then maybe you might have changed something. But
Right.
we're always trying to figure out what we're going to say.
Mhm.
We've just been entertained for 5 minutes, and now we have 5 minutes before somebody else is going down the center line, and we have a lot to write because that's a lot of book work and writing for us at the end.
Yeah.
Um, Once you do it a few times,
Mhm.
it gets easier.
Yeah.
Most of us judges, we are the ones to have the freestyle accreditation on our tickets.
Mhm.
I can tell you, it wasn't because we went to one freestyle, uh, session. We went to several. I've been to like 5 or 6, and I'm still looking for number 7. I figure maybe I'll get better.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to judge.
It's one of the hardest things to judge, but it's also one of the most fun things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's great. Well, we're almost at the end here. So I just wanted to, we don't have any questions left at the moment, but just kind of any of your like final thoughts, or where are you headed off to next? Where do you live? Are you in the South or North?
Yes. A little town called Anthony, Florida,
Mhm.
and it's actually right next to Ocala, Florida.
Oh, okay, great.
So
Yeah.
down in the Weckville, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, and where I'm going next week actually is the USDF annual convention in Houston.
Okay, great. Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you doing any like panels, or are you just kind of relaxing and enjoying participating?
I'm actually the regional director for Region 3.
Mhm. Okay.
So I'll be in a lot of meetings,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I also get to do the judges forums that they have. I'll have enough time to be able to hop into those and participate in that, which I'm really looking forward to. If you've never been to an annual meeting, you really should come. Of course, it's sort of late to make plans to go to Houston next week, but next year it's going to be at Lexington,
Oh,
and that's Kentucky, and that's always a great place to go home to because that's our head office,
mhm.
and there's always some fun things at Lexington to do. A lot of
Yeah.
education, it opens your eyes to everybody in the United States that does dressage because they'll be there from all 50 states. It's
Mhm.
great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love going to Lexington for different performances and things like that.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
we have one more little question. Janet said, at low levels, is there a tendency for people to pick music that is over tempo or under tempo for their horse? Seems to me that people use a lot of over tempo as a way of adding energy, but then it looks fake in general. What do you see?
Well, at lower levels, sometimes they push their horses a little too much,
Hmm.
um, and the music will push the horse. And
Hmm.
it doesn't look fake to me. It just looks like it's going too fast,
Yeah. Yeah.
and or it's not really working or gelling the way that they want it to.
Mhm.
Um, and your horse has to be self-carrying at any level to really be successful. In order to be self-carrying, it's a slower tempo
Mhm.
for the most part. If a horse is tight through the back and gets its legs going really fast, that's not going to look good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It goes back to basics the whole time.
Mhm.
Ride your horse right, and then find the music that fits it.
Yeah.
And it's nice if you like the music too.
Right, right. Like you said at the beginning, definitely always pick music you like. I love it. Well, this has been great, and I hope to run into you at some point. Hopefully this winter. I might be back in the show ring with my new horse, and I'm in Tallahassee, so I would go down to the World Equestrian Center, and I always I have positive memories of riding in front of you over the years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, actually,
You know,
my next gig will be right after I get back from Houston. I go down to White Fences.
oh,
So,
okay, great.
yeah,
Yeah, awesome. Well, that'll be
yeah,
great.
that's
Perfect. Well,
great.
thank you so much. This was awesome. And if anybody
Thank you
are,
for having me.
I think you must
Pardon?
be in the Facebook group because I was able to tag you, I think. So
Yeah.
this video will be in the news feed so people can watch it later as a replay. And if anyone has more questions after, you can go ahead and post them in the comments and I will answer if we need something that we want Charlotte to answer. I can tag her if she doesn't see it. So feel free to put up any questions. Everyone's saying thank you so much. Wonderful to listen. We had quite a few people listening today. Let's
Oh,
see.
okay.
Yeah, we have quite a few people. And and lots of people will listen later because they're all very curious and excited to learn all about this. So thank you so much for coming on, and I'm glad this worked out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you guys for everybody that
Thanks,
stayed to
everybody.
watch.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.